Welcome back to a year of Final Fantasy, and we are still in the month of Odin, and last time we talked about an ill-fated Final Fantasy mobile game called Airborne Brigade that didn't really last very long, less than 2 years actually. However, beforehand, Square did dabble in the mobile market, but with some more proper Final Fantasy type of games, and this is actually one of them. This is Final Fantasy Dimensions. Originally, Final Fantasy Dimensions was released in Japan in September of 2010 under a web service called Easy Web, and it handled similarly to Final Fantasy IV After Years, as it was released episodically. The first part of the game was released free, and then you could pay for additional episodes assuming you enjoyed the story, and that's actually how it originally debuted over here, and it kind of got a little bit controversial because people just wanted a Final Fantasy game. But eventually this was taken into consideration, and now you can go ahead and go get the game fully. I personally did it at around $12 as of this recording, but it does go on sale periodically. So unlike Airborne Brigade, I have played, obviously, this game and do enjoy it very much, despite the particular art direction that it chose to take, but we'll get into that in a little while. So, Final Fantasy mobile game. Dimensions is truly a traditional Final Fantasy game, similar to, in my experience, Final Fantasy V. It uses a classic-ish job system, and depending on what characters and chapters of the game you're playing, you're going to get access to these different jobs, which is actually one of the most interesting parts of the game. And before I get to that, though, explicitly, there's another part of the gameplay that I think is worth mentioning, and that's called the fusion system. And no, it is not the Dragon Ball Z fusion system. Sorry to disappoint, but how the system works is that if your characters possess two particular abilities that can fuse together, you'll actually just get access to another thing called an F ability, fusion ability, which have a little bit more different and powerful effects. It's certainly nothing new to video games at all, but it is worth mentioning. So as always, I won't go into the story, but I do want to provide some incredibly interesting information that you may want to know before getting into the game, and it's really what I alluded to earlier in the job system. In this, you play as the Heroes of Light, but more interestingly, you actually get to play as what they call the Warriors of Darkness, and I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to explicitly explain what that entails, but as you might expect, the story kind of ping-pongs back and forth, and eventually the stories intertwine. It really has embraced this kind of storytelling that we've seen in the current day, and it's showing just all aspects of the narrative equally with the different people that are involved in the story, and I'll leave it at that. Make no mistake, I really want to drive this point home that this is a mobile game, but it is truly a full-fledged Final Fantasy game. The only thing that may turn some of you off is the art style, and this is one of the first games to embrace this overly, I don't know, for lack of a better word, a generic kind of sleek art style, and that may sound good, but it's uninspired for me, I guess is the best way to say it. And in my opinion, it hides the Final Fantasy charm that we kind of all know and love. Maybe it's just an artifact left over from me playing the 16-bit games, but it erases that charm. And though some people have admittedly pointed out that this does allow for a more mono art style, I can agree with that to an extent. Certainly, that can be the case, especially with the portrait pictures, but the general sprites leave much to be desired in my opinion. And really it saddens me that they've tried to go with this kind of art style forward with the remasters of Final Fantasy V and VI. I know some people enjoy it, but I have to admit that it's just, I don't really like it at all. It takes away, like I said, from that quality of what the games were. And, you know, that's simply my own preference. If you like it, or if you can get over it, if you don't even care about it, then by all means, that's fine. This is just my opinion on it. And regardless, Dimensions is a fantastic game all around. It harkens back to the old Final Fantasy games, and it's something that fans have been clamoring for a long, long time. And this game does deliver, absolutely. So go check it out. You'll probably be pleasantly surprised, especially if you're looking to scratch that old school JRPG itch. This game is going to do it for you, no questions asked. And I guess we'll leave it there. It's a great game. Just go and check it out if at all possible. But next time on A Year of Final Fantasy in the month of Odin, we're going to move away from the mobile phone games for a bit, but we're still going to be talking about a portable game. And this one I've been dying to talk about for quite some time. We're going to be talking about the PSP really classic right now, Final Fantasy Dissidia, the first Final Fantasy fighting game and one of the best PSP games ever. So until next time, Crystal Warriors, keep on gaming.